Have you ever wondered, what do I give on Father's Day to a dad who has lost their baby? Do I get them anything, or will that be seen as offensive? In this episode, we will give you a glimpse into the thoughts and feelings of a father that has experienced baby loss, as well as provide 3 great ways to celebrate him as a father.
Hello, we're Jeff.
And Tony Brabeck, the founders of Our Little Sparrows Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support.
All right, so this episode is actually meant to be for dual purpose, two different audiences, really. So this is both for mom and dad, but it's also to hopefully give perspective to those outside of mom and dad. So loved ones, right? Family, friends, neighbors. So I mean, some of you might have stumbled upon this episode. I would also recommend moms and dads, if you want to give out this, link to this episode as a resource. There's some good things that we're going to be covering today on perspective and how to interact and communicate with a family of loss. So the first thing we really are going to address is asking the big question, or the elephant in the room type question, right? As Father's Day approaches, is it offensive to recognize a man of child loss as dad, as father? And a lot of times this is more applicable to the firstborn situation, or there's no children at home already, right?
Yeah.
So, and there could be different cases for that, obviously. But this is really around the perspective of like an only child or, situation. And that it could be really challenging, for a father or a dad to feel worthy of that title without that baby to take care of, right? So that's what we're addressing today. And I think, that question really can only be answered by two people. I really feel like first and foremost, you've got the dad. For those of you that are not sure, just ask. Ask dad, ask him, ask the father. And obviously you're going to do that in a way that's not saying, as the dad, do you want to be called dad? Right? It's a lot more neutral than that. It's just saying, okay, I understand a little bit, a glimpse of what you've gone through and what you're going through. How should I, how do you want to be called? How do you want to be addressed? Type thing. The second person I think that's more important is the second best, closest person to, the other parent, which would be mom. Just ask her, what does he want? What are his desires?
Yeah, like what do you think he would like to be addressed, or how would you he like to be addressed?
Obviously, this is a tricky or challenging conversation for most, and I would say that's why a lot of times you hear in our community that we're not talked about. It's not talked about. It's not brought up. His name is not said. Her name is not said. Or when their birthday passes, it's not even
Brought
up,
Yeah.
which can be very challenging too. All right, so now we're going to get into the 3 ways that we believe you can celebrate him on Father's Day. So, tip number 1, do not recognize the day at all. Just hold on, bear with me. Act as if it's not a special occasion. Treat it like any other day. So, let me explain. For some, it is going to take time to grapple with the gravity of their loss. You can imagine your baby dying just weeks before a special holiday, for instance, Mother's Day, Father's Day, or Christmas. So there are plenty of families I know personally in our community that have just up and left on a getaway vacation, leaving everything and everyone behind. So this is okay. It does happen.
Before Father's Day, I asked Jeff, Father's Day is coming up. How would you like to spend the day? And Jeff's response to me was not like didn't explain a whole lot to me, but he basically said, I don't want to do anything. And I think I asked why. And he said, it's because I'm not a dad, or I don't feel like a dad. And my personality didn't really push it any further. I just kind of accepted that his answer as it was, because I wanted to respect his feelings. I wanted him to give him space to grieve and navigate in his own way.
And that was 8 months after losing Olivia too.
Was it 8 months?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
she
it
was
was.
born October 5th,
Yeah,
and then obviously
yeah. I
June for
guess it is
Father's
eight
Day.
months
So
afterwards. So
it lasted
I
for a long time.
I left it, but it bothered me. And I didn't tell Jeff that, but I had kept thinking about it. It's like, why would he not see himself as a father? Because to me, in my eyes, he is the father. And so I was like, why wouldn't he want to be acknowledged as a father? I'm fine if he didn't want to do anything that day, but why is he not seeing himself as a father of our baby? And when we had just celebrated Mother's Day, and he definitely acknowledged me as the mother.
Right.
And so I struggled with that. And I finally had to go back to him because it was bothering me so much. And I asked him, "Is okay, so you told me that you didn't want to do anything for Father's Day, and because you didn't feel like a dad." And so I'm like, I asked him to explain that to me. And he did. And you basically said it's because you didn't feel like a father because you didn't have a baby. Like, we couldn't bring our daughter home.
Right.
Sorry. But so now that we had a baby, but we don't have kids at home. It was just us two. And so he explained that to me, and it made sense as to why he felt that way.
I think for me, it's a combination of things. Like the battle is on so many different levels, and not to get too deep in the weeds or anything, but for me, the battle it wasn't the struggle wasn't acknowledging that Olivia was my child. It was acceptance of the title. It was acceptance of our society calling me a dad. Like it's like I can only talk about 5 hours of my child's life because that's all she lived for.
Mm-hmm.
You imagine that struggle when you got other dads around you that their kids are 5 years old. I only had her for 5 hours, so it's like, man, I feel this small. I feel this significant as a dad. As a person, my significance is on a whole nother level. But being called dad to a child that's not alive, let alone one that I only got to be with for 5 hours, that we didn't take home from the hospital, that I didn't have more time to worry about, to comfort, to nurture. And I know those are a lot of those are terms that are usually designated to the mom, but it's like let's be real, let's be honest. Like dads comfort, dads nurture, dads teach. So to moms, I had nothing to protect. I had nothing to watch over, as far as a child goes, as far as a spouse, as far as animals, the home that we own, the cars that we own. Like that's like I had those responsibilities, but when you isolate it down to just the child, just Olivia, I did not feel that I deserved the title in public. And I don't know if that makes sense to anyone out there, but in public, I felt this big or small, whichever way you want to look at it. And that's where I was coming from. It wasn't a lack of acknowledging my child, um, Olivia. It was acceptance. It was public acceptance of the title. That's what it really comes down to. It's like I didn't feel worthy of it. And I know that sounds weird, but it's like it just is, right? That's how I felt, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That's a prime example. That was our example of tip number one on celebrating Father's Day. Some families just aren't going to do it. They may never do it. That's different. That's a different conversation. But I think the first holiday of any, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, is the hardest without your baby. So.
And it's not to say that he felt that way until we had James. I think it evolved. So I don't think that it was like that for like the next 3 years until we had James. It was just mainly
No.
that first
It was
Father's
mainly
Day.
that first Father's Day for me. Yeah.
So
most likely in this situation, you would not want to send them a card, a gift, um, probably any message of celebration. In this case, it's best to ask the family directly or someone that's closest to them that's acting as a point person if you're going to do anything at all. So let's move into tip number 2. Tip number 2 on how to celebrate a father would be to celebrate them from a distance. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that, it's kind of a hybrid. Is the best way I would explain it. So instead of not celebrating at all, the family has said, okay, we're going to celebrate, but privately. Whatever that means to them, however many people they've designated, if it's just the two of them, if it's the two of them plus their parents, whatever that looks like for them, it's a private affair. So it could be a pretty small circle, right? So some families do decide to keep it simple. They embrace the holiday, but they're limited and more personal. So in this case, you would send them a card, maybe a gift and a card, but most likely there would be no official time of celebration with that person. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It is best to ask the parents, even if even if you know they are celebrating, but they're not celebrating with everyone, or whatever that looks like. It's still best to ask the parents what they're okay with. Especially if you're going to send something, if you're going to communicate anything to them in any form, just be sensitive, right? Give them grace as they're giving everyone else grace around them. Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do. So it is a tough journey, and learning how to walk this world as a parent of baby loss is you learn something new every day type situation.
Right.
That's probably the best way to say it. All right, moving right on. Tip number 3. So in tip number 3, this is like no holds barred type thing. The parents have decided to embrace the holiday. They're opening up to anyone and everyone. They're going to a celebration, or they go to church and everyone's talking about Father's Day, and they're embracing the holiday in that manner. So the typical celebrating Father's Day. Which I don't think a lot of people probably do in our community, especially the first Father's Day, but it's definitely done. So even though the family is opening up, they're going to celebrate Father's Day as if they celebrated any other Father's Day. It is still important to go along with whatever the family is planning. So ask first, then act, type thing. So there's no reason to avoid a family that has invited you to celebrate. That's totally true. But don't assume that there are no ground rules to this open invitation, right? I think that could be self-explanatory, but I mean, let's dive a little deeper into that. So it's always best to ask if there are any off-limit questions, anything that shouldn't be addressed or brought up or talked about. I mean, this isn't a perfect situation. They are opening up to everyone, so hopefully they're accounting for some awkward conversations that are going to happen regardless. But our recommendation to those who are watching from the outside in, so to speak, friends, family, neighbors, still ask, what do they want to talk about? What don't they want to talk about? So this can be off-limit questions, off-limit general conversations. I mean, the point is to think of the parent first and not yourself. Like, what do I need to know? There's really nothing that anyone else should want or need to get out of the parents. I mean, to celebrate Father's Day to a father of a lost baby, a lost child, it's about them. Right? So that's the focus here, is to just continue asking them, what do you want? What do you need? And what is okay with you?
Yeah. And I think it's definitely just to kind of emphasize and reiterate that as a person who is not, as a person who is kind of outside the family circle, that, we're letting the couple or the father take leadership of how he wants to respond to Father's Day. And so I think it's
one day he gets.
It
Father's
shows
Day.
It shows compassion. It just shows care that you want to honor his fatherhood, but at the same time you want to honor how he is, where he's at right now.
All right, so there you have it, guys. 3 of the ways to acknowledge him on Father's Day. We do have a resource for this episode. It's going to be a link in the description below. This is a gift idea PDF. So it's going to be filled with a few of my top favorite gifts that I think are ideal for a father that is grieving the loss of their child on Father's Day. So really special gifts. There's going to be pictures of the gifts as well as links to each one of the websites that you can go to find these items. But definitely recommend you check that out. Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to wrap it up for today on this episode. We hope you guys enjoyed the content. We know Father's Day is coming up really quick here, so hopefully this was beneficial for you guys. A couple things we wanted to close with and end with. So it's important to ask before doing anything special for a parent of loss. I'm sure you've heard the old cliche, even the best of intentions can be misunderstood. Mm-hmm. Again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and have a great day. Take care.